Everybody, this is Joy Bracewell. I am the Writing Center Director at Georgia College in Milledgeville, and I believe I am the moderator of this session. This should be asynchronous and synchronous tutoring and pandemic tutoring. So we'll just hang out for a second to see who else kind of comes in, and then we'll get started. So, hi everybody. Again, this is Joy Bracewell, and this session is about asynchronous and synchronous tutoring. And if that is not your understanding, then let me know, because we're all experiencing new technologies these days. So let's kind of correct each other as we go. So I don't have a set agenda. We have, as Dwayne said, I think until 10:40 in here, so that's about 30 minutes to chat. So it may be good to, since there's not that many people here, go around, introduce ourselves, and then kind of just say our initial interest in this topic. And feel free to unmute yourself, or if your mic isn't working, go ahead and say that in the chat so we can look there for your introduction. And I suppose I'll go first. So as I said earlier, I direct the Writing Center at Georgia College, and I started that position in 2018 in May, so it's been about 2 years. And Georgia College is a primarily residential campus, 4-year. It's basically, they like to think of themselves as third in line in the university system behind Georgia Tech and UGA, in terms of a place for that students want to choose to go, and also the flagship liberal arts place. So they did not have much investment at all in online tutoring. And my previous institution was a totally different type of school. And so when I came to Georgia College, I thought it would be good, because they had graduate programs, to begin exploring it sort of as a secondary, pilot, sort of program, not something that was like a primary focus of the tutoring of the Writing Center. So, of course, when the pandemic hit and, shut down in March, that changed completely. And so I was very glad that we had some WebEx training and so forth as part of like a secondary focus, but it definitely was not in our wheelhouse. This has become much more of an issue for everyone, and our Writing Center is totally online right now because our space is so small. And I was lucky enough to have a supervisor who said that was fine. I know not everybody's in that situation. So, that's kind of our history with it. It wasn't something that we were doing much before, and it was in its very nascent stages. But obviously, it's our main focus now. So if they're around and just have people introduce themselves and say what their interest is in the topic and get to know each other a little bit, that'd be great. And maybe I'll tag Jack next, if that's right. And once you introduce yourself, you can tag the next person.
great. Yeah, let me know if you can see and hear me, or I guess if not, in the chat. But yeah, hello everybody. I'm Jack. I'm a second year tutor at Emory, um, which is interesting because my only tutoring experience then has been online, because we are completely online, so I'm not even in Georgia right now. And so, yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm just sort of interested in how we can negotiate having tough conversations over an online space or in that space. Just because I have been finding it more difficult to try to breach more difficult topics, or to really build, rapport with an incoming writer in an online space. And I don't have much to compare that to. I'm sure it is probably also difficult in person, but I just think it would be interesting to hear more about that. Oh, and I guess if we're gonna tag people off, Brooke, if you want to go ahead, feel free.
Yeah, hi everyone. I hope you can see and hear me. So I'm Brooke. I actually go to Emory with Jack and with a couple other people in this group right now. And I'm a junior, and this is my second year as a tutor, so definitely a change from being all in person last year. I'm also interested in the same things as Jack, and then also like how to beat Zoom fatigue, like not only for yourself, but also with writers. Sometimes I feel like they can be so tired from doing online stuff that sessions can be a little bit more difficult. So that's another reason why I'm interested in this panel. And I will tag Kamal.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kamal. I'm a sociology PhD student at Emory University and first year tutor. And I am particularly curious about the scaffolding process during the online tutoring sessions. How much of help is guidance, and how much of help is too much help, so to say. So establishing the balance between the two, I'm especially curious about. Thank you so much. And I think I will tag Junaid. If Junaid is not available, maybe Nicole.
Hi, can you guys hear and see me? Yes, okay. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Nicole, and like a lot of you guys, I'm also from Emory, and so I'm a current sophomore, and this is my first year tutoring. And I guess the reason I've decided to join this breakout room is because I really wanted to know how I can be able to support tutees through online tutoring sessions, because even though I haven't really had a chance to tutor in person on campus, I've been to several appointments at the writing center, and I found them really helpful because it's like the physical environment is very friendly. And now that I'm a tutor at the writing center, I really wanted to know how I can bring that welcoming environment from a physical space to just on the screen and on my laptop. So I guess that's why I'm here. I would like to tag Julie.
I think she might have left.
Oh,
I came back. I was in two sessions at the same time, so I had to undo what I had done. My name is Julie Steed, and I am a first-year writing instructor at the University of West Georgia. And I agree with what Brooke said about the fatigue everyone is experiencing from being in front of a computer all day. So I'm here just to hear some ideas about how we can facilitate these synchronous or asynchronous sessions online in a way that utilizes everyone's time well and kind of fight some of that fatigue as well. At West Georgia, we are doing face-to-face sessions as well, but we're also offering the online options. So that's why I'm here, just to get some fresh ideas.
Great. So I think we might have heard from everybody. Is there anybody that we haven't heard from yet that would like to talk about your ideas and what you are wanting to talk about? And if your mic isn't working well, or you just rather put it in the chat, go ahead and do that as well. Okay, so it sounds like we're sharing a lot of commonalities. So West Georgia is got some face-to-face and online. And Emory, is yours all online then, like Georgia College?
Yeah, we're completely online.
Okay. So with the all online, it's kind of like all or nothing, and then with the face-to-face, you can get some of the normal. But I'm guessing with math, it's feeling a lot different too, if you're social distancing and that sort of thing. So maybe we could start with the Zoom fatigue and then go into the welcoming. It's Friday morning, and we're probably, we've had it's well into the semester, so maybe you all are sort of thinking about how you can manage, this semester and make sure that you're taking care of yourselves and the people around you when it comes to other staff. So let's think about that first, and then maybe move into welcoming environment. So, we can just kind of open it up and be a little informal and say who has been experiencing Zoom fatigue. Are there any tips that you have, like in terms of things that you can do to rest your eyes? Maybe looking at the length of your sessions and kind of thinking about that. If you could ask your director about that, or if you have control over that, or you could make suggestions or exercises that you could do. What kind of things have you been experiencing in terms of the Zoom fatigue or fatigue of being in online spaces, and what kind of things have you heard of people doing, or would you think of doing yourselves?
I guess I'll just say, yeah, I agree that with a lot of what you said, and sort of identifying some of the things, particularly um, sort of eye stress has been a big issue for me. One thing that has helped with that is just basically completely not looking at screens whenever I'm not sort of forced to for work, which is not ideal. And obviously, it's sort of a departure from what I might have done previously, where I would watch movies or relax in ways that were sort of more online, but really trying to separate those two spaces as much as possible. And then also, I don't know if this is possible for everyone, but I'm actually an environmental science student, and I'm in a field studies class, and I've been able to spend a lot of time outside for that, which has been really nice.
So great. So maybe the effects of the pandemic and our work are kind of reaching into more areas of our lives where, in order to combat Zoom fatigue, we're actually having to rethink what our leisure time or time away looks like. Has anybody else experienced that? I know people are saying that they're going outside more these days, and that's one safe way to kind of be around people in a socially distanced way. What other techniques have you been using, or have you found that you've been able to make a more radical departure, you know, in your trying to balance work life?
Yeah, I think that was a really great point that was brought up about like resting your eyes away from screens, because like all this time I've been like in between sessions, especially like I've been watching like a funny YouTube video or scrolling on Instagram to like really like to like decompress and kind of have fun. But now that I'm thinking about it, it would probably be better to just give my eyes a full rest from looking at a screen for once, and that might help my headaches too. But I mean, it sounds like a simple thing, but I also like to drink a lot of water, like more water than I used to. Like I feel like I'm more dehydrated since I'm mostly in my house 24/7, and then also speaking to people all day like also gets me dehydrated. So I don't know, I've been drinking more water lately, and I feel like that keeps me more energized or awake, and going on walks too.
Yeah, great point, Brooke. So realizing like the things that we might do in terms of de-stressing, like, you know, they have to be rethought sometimes when it comes to like our physical health. And yeah, great point about hydrating. Maybe being in a different environment can affect, you know, our it's a lot. So I don't know. There's a water fountain across from the writing center at Georgia College, and you know, I'm on campus 2 days a week, but there's nobody there really. But even so, I really don't like to. I really don't like to go outside the writing center in terms of just being around people in the hallways and so forth. So something that I would used to do I would be go outside the writing center to get a drink of water, and then come back and you know, fill up my water bottle as a way of seeing people coming in and out of the building, and it was a good excuse to socialize. And it's, you know, totally different sort of environment now. That's something I look forward to doing. And then if we're in our homes a lot, maybe, you know, our habits have to change in terms of self-care as well. So maybe if you think of things in terms of resting your eyes or Zoom fatigue, or you know, things that can help with that as we go forward, feel free to jump in. Let's go into maybe the welcoming part of, and we can maybe focus on asynchronous and synchronous. They're so different, and I don't know if we said fully if everybody's doing both. Georgia colleges. Um, so how do you know, what are the challenges that you find like in terms of being welcoming, like in synchronous sessions and in asynchronous sessions? We actually just had a conversation about this yesterday in our writing center at Georgia College. One of the tutors, who's a graduate student, said for asynchronous, her reflection was about the fact that for asynchronous session, she thought she would like them more. She's a new tutor. And she thought she would like them more because, you know, you're more in control. You don't have to feel that sense of, you know, I'm in front of another human being and they're, you know, in real time and I may not know what to say. She actually found herself liking them less because at the end of the session, there was no sort of you know, input or feeling of like satisfaction that the student was saying that they felt better about the assignment and so forth. And also she mentioned, you know, like feeling like a robot a little bit. And maybe, you know, I don't know how you all are feeling, but it could be that we're just feeling a little bit more like, you know, robots in a chain these days because we don't have those regular interactions, and maybe students are as well. And also in terms of the students getting the feedback, especially if it's asynchronous, you know, have you found, or do you think that they are kind of, you know, not thinking of the tutor as a person as much anymore, which I don't have evidence of that in our center, but I think maybe the tutors are feeling a little bit more pressure that the students may not be thinking of them as people as much because they're not in front of each other. So just opening it up to your thoughts on that and ways that we can make those connections, make students feel welcome, but also sort of give ourselves the satisfaction of helping someone even if we don't see them.
Professor Bracewell, I was just wondering what you meant by asynchronous sessions, because at Emory we only do synchronous tutoring sessions.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a great question. So synchronous just meaning at the same time, you know, and so like what we're doing now, and then asynchronous meaning not at the same time, and so the student does not have to be present for this session. It's basically some sort of feedback where you're not in real time talking to each other. And right now, the feedback that we're giving is like comments on a paper and then a memo, like an overview memo. At some centers, and this is something I want to move towards maybe for the asynchronous, where you're not talking to each other and just giving feedback. Some centers give, again, I want to adopt this like screencasting feedback where like you have a video and give it to the student. So that's what I mean by that. Does that clarify?
So do you mean that they would actually just simply like comment on the papers and they wouldn't actually record themselves like giving advice? Like it's just like it's all like on a document, basically.
That's right.
Got it. Okay. Um, since I don't really have experience in like asynchronous sessions, I'll just comment on the synchronous sessions that I've had so far and like my thoughts about them. So, because I'm in a different time zone than um, most of you guys, my tutoring sessions tend to be late at night. So, what I would start during my tutoring sessions is I would just ask my TTs about like how they're doing like in terms of like coursework, but also like where they are currently residing in. So I would like, for example, I might ask them like, are you currently in Atlanta? And most of the time they would like after talking about their areas a bit, I would sort of like tell them to, you know, like stay safe and healthy. And most of the time they would in turn ask me about my location, and this is when I would just tell them that I'm in Taiwan. And so it's like really interesting to see that like they're probably in like a place that's like morning and I'm just here at night. And so after like this sort of icebreaker sort of like introduction, I would just hop into like tackling the paper or the writing piece that my TT is asking for help on. And so that's how I've been doing my tutoring sessions. And I was wondering if there are others who have um, different sort of ways to introduce each other in their sessions.
Yeah, I love that idea of acknowledging like the big time difference and kind of talking about your location and spending maybe a little more time on that rapport building, so that, and also acknowledging, you know, the sort of real the situation we're all in, and you know, allowing for that care for each other at the end of the session. So how have you all found that you are building that rapport, and how are students responding?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting about the time zone thing too. I had an appointment with someone once where it was like 1 a.m. his time, and it was like really strange, but he seemed to be thriving late at night, so I guess maybe it does work with different time zones sometimes. Um, but as far as rapport building, I definitely feel like it's more important like now even more than in person because like I feel like in person you can usually pick up on like nonverbal cues or something like from someone like using like positive body language to like convey enthusiasm or like interest, but like over like the screen it's a bit harder, so I feel like I have to be like more like enthusiastic or like purposefully more engaged like while over the screen, like just so they know that I am interested and I'm not like zoning out. um, and I also think like something that's helped me is like maybe taking breaks occasionally to like have rapport, like have a conversation like during the session, like especially if I do notice that they are getting kind of overwhelmed with like so much nonstop talking about their paper. So like maybe occasionally like we'll talk about something like related to the class or like whatever like that they might bring up sometimes. Sometimes also people don't want to talk to you like and they just want to focus on their paper. So I'll try and respect that too because I don't want to force someone to talk to me if they don't want to. But most of the times I feel like it's just helpful to yeah, to spend like a good amount of time chatting with someone and then taking maybe occasional pauses like to give like brain a break.
Yeah, really nice points that well into what Nicole was saying in terms of if you have like a 45-minute or hour-long session, like feeling for, and like you said, it is a little harder to gauge the body language, but feeling for whether you sense the student getting tired or just asking them, and then kind of taking a little time to chat about other things to come back. I was actually watching a tutoring session as part of a check-in with a tutor, and she told the student there was a bug crawling on her wall, and then went back and said, "I'm gonna have, I'm just if you see me watching that, that's what's happening." And then about 5 minutes later, she killed the bug and went back to tutoring, and she told the student, "I'm gonna have to kill this bug." And I don't know how you feel about bug killing, so I don't want to get into that, but it was interesting how that was sort of like a physical material reality that they were in the writing center together. They would have been experiencing that together. And so how you deal with those kind of physical realities that are different in your material environments is really interesting as well. And she was super embarrassed that that recording had that in there, but I just think that's kind of, part of what these sessions entail these days. Yeah, that's funny. So Jack, you mentioned having difficult conversations. So maybe this could tie in our last 5 minutes to the talk that we heard at the beginning. Who has found the need to have difficult conversations, perhaps because the student is, writing about that from a personal perspective, or else they are dealing with, contentious issues and, not coming at it from a perspective that is respectful to others. Let's open it up to that maybe in terms of your experiences and how you've handled it.
Yeah, one of my experiences with that, I have not had any experiences of the latter yet, but I've had a few experiences like what we talked about in the main session where students came in, English language, I was tutoring English language learning students, and they came in expressing a desire to, scare quotes, speak natively or sound like an English speaker, that sort of desire, and then trying to have that sort of discussion that we were talking about in the main session of um, you sort of where that desire is coming from and why it's important to think about that and how it fits in with academia and all of that. I do think that those conversations are super difficult, especially connecting to what Brooke said that normally I would rely a lot on body language and those nonverbal cues to sort of understand how a student is responding to bringing up that conversation, and because I don't want to make them uncomfortable. So I think that's, yeah, it's just something that's very difficult to negotiate in an online session, possibly more so than normally, where it's also still difficult.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point, because online sessions in some ways feel more distant and also more intimate, because you're in spaces with each other that you wouldn't normally be, but yet you're not in the same space. So what are other people's experiences, and how did you deal with those conflicts? So maybe people haven't had those experiences yet, or don't want to talk about it, but I think it is difficult. I don't have any answers for you, Jack, but it is difficult to sort of think about having a conversation that's meta to the session, in terms of someone's wishes and desires for what they want, and then also not being intrusive, right? And not like making them do, making them talk about things that they don't want to talk about. But in terms of reading body language or asking open-ended questions and then sort of prompting someone to go forward, maybe falling back on those like tutoring techniques that we already have to kind of read the situation could be useful. And I do like what was clear about, especially, having these conversations at all, not whether to have it, but to just have this as something that is part of our practice, maybe is something that's really important. And Candace Bond mentioned that in the chat as well, about just normalizing having these types of conversations with everybody, all the stakeholders, all the people who are dealing with education on campus, whether it's a student or a professor. So it looks like we're running out of time, but are there any sort of final thoughts that you all had about asynchronous, synchronous tips, just general frustrations that you have, or unexpected kind of fun things about this situation?
I guess as an unexpected fun thing, I mean, it's not really fun, but like, I feel like the perk of everyone going through a pandemic together is the fact that you do have something in common with literally anybody that you tutor. So like, if you ever are searching for a conversation topic, or you need it, you just automatically empathize with really just any stranger that you meet, like about this whole situation that the world's going through. So I guess that is like a positive that maybe comes out of this.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Brooke. I mean, I'm sure we would rather not have that as a conversation topic, but it is happening. It is our reality. And so recognizing that and sort of empathizing with each other is a big deal right now. We are all experiencing this in different ways, but we're all experiencing it in some way. So that's a really nice point. Well, we have about 5 minutes now. Maybe you all want to stretch your legs, get a drink or something. So I'll let you guys make your way to the next session. It was really wonderful meeting all of you and hearing the conversations and the issues that you had on your mind. So hope we meet again soon, and have a good rest of the meeting, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Professor Bracewell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Joy Bracewell. I'm the Writing Center Director at Georgia College, and you are in the asynchronous and synchronous tutoring and pandemic tutoring session. So I think and then we can add them. It looks like there's enough of us here to get started, but also that we're a small group, so we can be pretty open with this this conversation. So I introduced myself, and maybe we could each introduce ourselves and then tag another person going forward. And talk about like what your interests are for this session, like what your conversation topics that are most on your mind. In the first breakout session, some people were thinking about difficult conversations in an online setting, how to go about that, Zoom fatigue, scaffolding, so not being too directive or with online sessions, and I suppose that could be virtual synchronous or asynchronous, and then providing a welcome environment. So again, I'm the Writing Center Director at Georgia College, and you know, my main sort of issues in terms of online tutoring, we're all online, is you know, how to reach students in an online environment. Also, our software is changing because of budget cuts, and then also, you know, how to, you know, make asynchronous tutoring, which at college right now it's we're moving towards screencasting, but it's right now it's written feedback, like in a memo, and then comments on like side notes on the paper, making that meaningful for tutors. So maybe Heather, if I'm saying your name right, if you could go next, and then we could go to the next person and talk about the things that where you're coming from, and what you're interested in terms of these types of tutoring.
Yeah, well, I'm Heather. I'm a tutor at Middle Georgia State University, and actually had my very first online tutoring session this week. So it's challenging. Our software is not super great. It has audio and video, and then we have a shared document space that we can copy and paste into. So half of what we do in the Writing Center is, you know, letting them talk to us, letting them ask questions, and kind of talking them through, because we don't do redlining or editing. We just kind of consult. And so I guess what I'm interested in is how I can more effectively communicate with my clients, because, you know, many of them, like we often joke that they always tell us they want help with grammar because they don't know what else to ask. And part of what we do as a Writing Center is walk them through to figure out what they need help with, and that's hard if you're stuck in a Zoom session or chat. You know, I had the person I had wasn't able to make their audio, or I guess they weren't comfortable with it, and so we had to communicate with chat, which makes it less difficult, makes it more difficult to be misunderstood, but it's harder to communicate that way. So
And since we're on technology, it looks like there's a side panel where we have like chat and so forth. So I know Blackboard Collaborate is new to me, but if you kind of click around in it, it looks like it has some of the same things that WebEx or Zoom does. So Warda, is that the correct pronunciation of your name? Would you?
Yeah, Warda. Yeah, Warda. Can you see me now? Okay. Yeah, so I'm Warda, and I'm a senior at Emory University, and I've been working in the Writing Center there for about a year now. And currently we've been using Zoom for our synchronous tutoring session. So we kind of have our Zoom meeting room that we have. So when they make an appointment, it's available for them. And we just log in at the same time, and kind of like how you're talking about, like a shared screen space that we use. And we just go through it and we try to simulate what it would have been in person, but sometimes it's a bit harder because it's online, and typically we have our writers come in with printed copies to avoid them from like quickly like that trigger backspace and changing things that we try to prevent them from having. So sometimes it's a challenge because you don't want to like, oh, stop, don't change this yet. But like the more I've been having online sessions, it gets a bit easier. And I kind of outlined that in the beginning that, okay, we're going to read through this. And if you want to change something, make a comment, don't directly change it. And so we try to have it like that.
Nice. So I hear you saying, correct me if you're going a different way with this, but these sort of directional kind of, you know, what I'm going to do and what you're going to do and how things work in terms of technology and sharing, you know, the screen and paper, you know, digital paper is also kind of more forefront with virtual tutoring as well. Does that make, is that about?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Because typically, like in the writing center, we kind of, I still have a little bit more direction, but I try not to be. I just try to bring it up like, we're going to be looking at your paper together, but I have to be a bit more assertive or like blatant about like the expectations online because people feel like they tend to have more control. They're the ones sharing their screen, they still have their paper and stuff like that. So I can't really like stop them sometimes from doing specific things or changing a lot of stuff. Like sometimes I still see like tutees come in and they start like backspacing things and I'm like, wait, now we don't know like what we're fixing because you put in so many different words. So let's try and like put comments on the side and brainstorm that instead.
Yeah, so really interesting how our technologies can affect like the sense of being able to like, you know, comment and so forth. So whether you can share a screen and you both have control or only one person can have control at the time, or if you're like working in a Google Doc and you're having to email back and forth the link or put it in the chat. All right, so I see we have another person here, Sierra, if you're able to introduce yourself and talk about the what is forefront in your mind in asynchronous and synchronous tutoring, that'd be great. And if not, just put it in the chat.
Oh, hi. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. I so we have like an online platform that we use. It has a whiteboard space in the middle, but it doesn't share formatting. And a lot of what we do is helping students with their paper formatting for whatever kind of style they're using. And so that can be a little bit complicated. But something that I was reading about in our training materials was having some kind of almost like stock responses, places where you send people online for information. In the Writing Center itself, I have access to books I can show people and that kind of thing. I was wondering if there are any kind of places that you guys are sending students that are especially useful to you.
That's a great topic. So I know, and probably everybody will say Purdue Owl for my part. I also like the UNC resources when it comes to lots of videos. The UNC Writing Center has lots of videos in terms of brainstorming and sort of saying what that's uh, doing for students. And then another one that I like is BYU has some great handouts on like peer review and just organize sort of talking people through a process through handouts. What are some other resources that you all can think of or that you are go-tos, or maybe areas where you wish that you had resources, and see if anybody else has tips?
I know that for me, I'm a frantic Googler. When I'm sitting in a session with someone, and I actually do this with my in-person consultations as well. I'm always got my laptop up so I can Google things. Oh yeah, over here. I was wondering. I know that our individual writing centers probably have some basic resources, but they're not always necessarily online. Like I have a huge, beautiful shelf with lots of cool worksheets, but not so much helpful on the online thing. And I was wondering if there was like a way that we could even create a collaborative thing as a writing center group together that we could kind of all like wiki style contribute to, because there's such a wealth of knowledge and it's spread out across an entire state. You know, and especially in these pandemic times where we're just, this is new, it's weird. You know, I've been a tutor for almost a year and a half now, I think, and this has definitely been challenging my learning curve quite a bit.
Yeah, Sierra, jump.
Okay, yeah, something that I think is what makes it so complicated on the internet for me is that it's difficult to show, like, do you ever have trouble like getting back to an online resource? You know, like it's sometimes kind of hard to navigate all the channels of the web and get back to where you were unless it's still in your history or something. And so sometimes it's hard to teach students to navigate those online like indexes and that kind of thing, just because they're not used to finding that information. So that's part of what my trouble has been with the online sources. And I've been thinking about maybe trying to like make a PDF with my favorites or something like that. Is that something that any of you guys have done?
And I think we had someone else join while we were doing intros. Trayla, I think it is, and free to correct me. So it looks like we've gotten into talking about resources, but maybe you could jump on in the chat or on your microphone if that's possible, and tell us, you know, what your interest is and what your experience is with online tutoring, virtual and asynchronous. So I don't see anything coming through, but if you want to join in, feel free to join in the chat or jump in. I think it's a great idea to you know, get something together as a state. So, you know, mentioning that to Dwayne, maybe a debrief would be great. We could get a Google Drive started or something, or Dropbox maybe to upload things. And also, like you said, being personally organized seems really important these days. Like I'm just thinking, like physically in a tutoring session, you know, you have your computer for resources or to look at a paper, and then you're looking at the person for other things. But now we're looking at our computer for the person and for everything, and just managing all of the tabs and technology on one screen, even if you know where you're going and you're feeling very organized, that can be just a little more challenging. So I think that's a great idea to have like a personal PDF to click on, to just have there for yourself, just to minimize the stress of, you know, of being on the screen all the time. And Warda, what did you have to say about this?
I was just gonna say like, yeah, PDF would be really helpful because sometimes like I'll keep the website open, or like for the writing center we have like our handouts and things, and I want to like check on those and stuff like that. But I also don't want to detract from the session I'm in right then. Like I want to make sure I'm able to fully utilize our 45-minute meeting. And so I think like if they give me a very, like we have when you make the appointment, like what they kind of want to discuss, sometimes people give pretty detailed ones, like exactly what they're looking for, what they want help with. Other times, like a lot of people come in or just like, oh, please read this over. So I can't really prep for that as well. So I think that would be very helpful. But also we do our like tutor reports after a session, and usually they're only like a paragraph, a couple sentences here and there that just outlines what we did and like any other feedback we want to remind them once we send the email back to them. But for the tutor reports I write on these sessions now that are over Zoom, I tend to make them a bit longer, and whatever handouts or anything that I mentioned during the session that I link them to, I'll include those links once again in the report so they can just refer back to them and have that there, because I feel like once you're on Zoom, especially with like Zoom fatigue and everything, you don't really feel like you actually like actually did something, or your memory kind of, there's like a difference in what you're experiencing sometimes. I feel like, did we actually go over this or did I not, like things like that. So I think it's helpful to have that all in one place at the end.
Yeah, that's something that we send tutor reports to the professor at our school, but we don't send it to the student. And that's an interesting thought, especially with online tutoring, to send, because the chat goes away with the session and we don't record the sessions or anything. So that might be good for our school to start doing. Thanks, Warda.
Thanks. Yeah, we actually have the tutor reports like for ourselves, like to refer back to, and for them as well. And we'll ask them, would you like us to send it to anyone else, any professors or anyone else that this class we're working with? We encourage them to, but if they don't want to, we don't do it. But yeah, it's just like practice we've had, and I think it's been very helpful because sometimes we have writers who return to the writing center with the same work, and you want to ask them like, oh, which tutor did you work with? What did you go over? And if they came like a week ago, they're not really going to remember all of it. So it's nice to be able to refer back to those existing reports.
Awesome. Those are some great tips. Just in terms of workflow, sometimes, how you collect reports, who you send them to, where you put in the types of just the questions in the session can make a big difference, like if it's a habit. So that's a really good point, Warda and Sierra, in terms of, thinking about maybe changing that up a little bit, see if we could make it easier for you all during sessions. So we can continue to talk about resources, and also I think, yeah, it's really important to see what we could do as a state, and how people could contribute to that, maybe in a list, maybe in the big discussion with Dwayne, and maybe also we could open it up to things that are going on with you all, like in terms of how you're experiencing these sessions, what you do if you have like connectivity problems, if there's any particular sort of like panic or an anxiety around those issues that you wouldn't have normally, or maybe there's some things that are easier about these sessions in some way than face to face, where it's kind of, because we're all in separate spaces, or we tend not to see people as much, we aren't able to talk about these things as much, or you have questions that come up that are different than the ones that you had when you were tutoring face to face. So anything like that anybody has on their mind. Sure, Sierra.
First of all, should I keep my video up or should I?
That's totally up to you. It helps me see you, but whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. I guess my response to your question is that this is my first semester tutoring. I started in the midst of all of this, and so it's been a little bit of a challenge, kind of not only navigating tutoring for the first time, but also navigating all the online changes. And we don't have as many writing tutors in the Writing Center, and so I haven't really been able to observe other sessions like I think I would have if I had come at a different time. And so, yeah, I guess something that's been difficult for me has kind of been, even though I am in the face-to-face for 10 hours a week, uh, I'm still feeling a little bit isolated, even though I am face-to-face. Have you guys had that experience at all?
I know I definitely have. I'm in the Writing Center on Mondays. Haven't actually done any face-to-face sessions. Usually by now I've done a couple, and people are coming in, but it's not as busy as it normally would be because a lot of people are online. Our campus has been very lucky that we haven't had any kind of major outbreak. People are absolutely fantastic about wearing masks. There's just sort of a culture of doing everything together. School policy's been good. But it just feels like, even when you're sitting face to face, you still have that mask on and you're missing a lot of that back and forth, interaction and feedback that you would normally have. So I'm just kind of feeling disconnected. I mean, it's a general sense of malaise, I guess. But yeah, I totally can see that. And that almost feels like we're kind of missing out on part of the experience we're supposed to have.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel that tutors probably maybe the tutor reflection that I one of the tutors had this week was about, I think there was a sense of frustration in terms of like the term robot came up. And so I think especially with asynchronous and she was expressing frustration that, she was just producing things for what's the feedback, what's the input, like we're getting inputs from our screens and maybe like social distancing, we get to be around other people, but there's so many maybe other anxieties that come with that, like even being around other people. And then like we're wearing like this mask that it's like, well, is it my nose, is yours coming off your nose? Like I'm sweaty inside of here. I do think that maybe there's that sense, there's more barriers than there were before in terms of like connecting, and that sense of, I hate the word freedom sometimes because it's used in so many contexts and misused. I feel this freedom to like be with another person and get excited about things. But I mean, I think it can happen online and in person with social distancing, but maybe it's a little different right now. And so what we expect maybe can change. That we're not feeling like we're missing out, because like if your expectations change, that can help with coping with this difference. And also maybe it's a good thing to remind myself and to remind all of you all in the Writing Center community like how important we are to students, in terms of just providing that sense of connection when they're probably also feeling very disconnected, and wondering how to navigate this. Like this support that we give, that one-on-one support, is just so vital right now, even if it doesn't maybe feel like it's used as much as it would have been. And so it feels like maybe they're not understanding it's important. Even getting feedback asynchronously or coming to a session, a student will realize the importance of that.
You're muted.
Hello. Another thing that I feel like kind of connects to that connection with the student that you're tutoring is we use, we'll use the chat function anytime we have connectivity issues. And that has been, so something that I think kind of complicates, you know, there are a lot of conversations going on right now about, you know, standard American English and all that kind of thing. There's like, this is a less important side maybe than the, you know, definitely than the racial justice side of that, but there's also this like millennials, Gen Z, we've created a kind of internet way of speaking where you express yourself with, you know, unusual spelling or with shorthand or capitalization. A lot of those things have specific meaning on the internet, but as a writing tutor, I don't feel like I should necessarily use those, and then I sound sometimes overly formal. Instead of, you know, being my more personable self like I would be in spoken discussion. Are you guys using internet speech at all or anything like that when you're chatting with students or giving asynchronous feedback?
I actually had that exact same thought in my last session. It's like, this feels so stilted and weird. I tend to have a more formal mode of speaking online anyway, just because big fan of let's practice good grammar. But yeah, like I'm kind of caught between professional and friendly. Like I want to be professional, but I don't want to be like they're talking to a robot. But I don't know where the balance is. So I'll throw in an LOL occasionally.
I think with like the internet speech and stuff like that, I usually wait to see how the other person is talking, and then I just like mirror what they're like what kind of language they're using or how they're writing things and things like that, just so they can feel like, okay, yeah, I'm not being like, oh, not unprofessional and things like that. So I think that helps and makes them feel more comfortable. And I don't know how it works at your writing centers. Usually, like for the first few minutes, we kind of build a little some rapport and like ask them like a little bit about themselves, how their day's been, what year they are, and then go into like the assignment and the class and stuff like that. So it like helps to get them to open up a bit more, feel relaxed, and not just like, hi, you're here for me to help you with your work, rather than like, okay, you're here and we're taking a look at this together and things like that.
Yeah, that's something that, you know, you're supposed to like mirror body language when you're tutoring, right? You're supposed to, you know, kind of use like physical mirroring techniques to make people comfortable. And so I kind of try to do that as well. Yeah, I feel like sometimes I forget to do as much of the, hey, how you doing online. It's really nice that that's something that you guys really focus on. That's awesome, Lorda.
Yeah, I know. I actually worked on it a bit more when we first started. So I know it's like your first semester and everything. So don't feel bad if you like jump right in because you want to get started and be like, I'm really here to help you. But like after doing this a year, and we have like professional developments and things like that. So one of our assignments was we have to like watch another session and observe and write down notes of what they did and like what are some good things, what are things that they should work on a bit more. And then later on we have our own, like we have our staff group. So our grad fellow will observe us in a session and then give us feedback with like how we're doing. And so one of the things was that I should work on my rapport a bit more because I like spend like 2-3 minutes and then like jump right in. And so I always focus on it now because it actually does help and set the tone for the rest of the session and make both sides feel very comfortable. And I did find it a bit harder now over Zoom and things like that. So I try to make sure like my camera is like at least my upper body so you can see my hands and movements, and we try to make it a point that to keep video on just so we can try to get a little bit more of that body language, even though yeah, it is a lot harder because you can't really like the person facing you or sitting towards you or eye contact and things like that.
So yeah, super good points from everybody. That tension is real, I think, and I think it's you know, that balance between professional but being friendly and mentoring is a great thing, but I also think that tension is real, and so I mean, there's not a a one size fits all sort of to that. We're all coming from different places, and the students are coming from different places in terms of their orientations, like in terms of non-traditional and traditional age students, and what the tutor's orientation towards that might be. So there's probably just not a one size fits all in terms of how that interaction goes forward. And then what y'all are saying about not not being in the mix as much. So it sounds like, Florida, you're able to look at videos of sessions and things like that and sort of focus on it in a sustained way, but that sort of on the job training that most people get just for being in the writing center is not really there right now. So maybe trying to find ways. I know everybody has other things that they're doing, whether it's like other parts to their job, or you're a student or whatever, but maybe some things that could ease like those issues you have by like maybe having more check-ins, asking for more check-ins with other tutors, or talking to your coordinators or directors or whoever is sort of your supervisor that you supports you more, could be something that is maybe an option as well. So yeah, really great tips from everybody, and like real tension. So I think it's also important to just validate ourselves and say, hey, I'm starting in a pandemic and this is different, and nobody's ever done this before, and this was not the plan of my writing center to be all online in year 2020. That's not part of the strategic plan. It's just what happened. So then where are we with that, and then what kind of support can I expect for myself? Yeah, like Florida said, maybe sort of a group, or also group chats can be good as well, and just a debrief and tension release as well. What are some other things we've got? Let's see, our session ends in 5 minutes. What are some sort of last minute things that are on your mind today as we kind of head out to the bigger discussion again?
I guess, my question, I guess, would be less of a purely writing center focused one. I wanted to give everybody a chance to speak up if they did. So if you have a more writing center focused question, please interrupt me. But what are you guys doing as far as self-care and dealing with the stresses of all of this? This is really freaking weird. I was supposed to have an internship this semester, and now I've been switched to a senior project for obvious reasons. And I'm just curious what kind of self-care you guys are doing, and either in your work as writing center consultants or faculty, or just in life in general.
I buy myself a new tea every time I go to the grocery store. Like a new box of tea, which is funny. And one of the nice things about being being home more is being able to spend. I think that's probably a writing center thing. I think maybe we all love tea, but being able to like actually like spend more time with my pets has been really nice for me. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, see. Yeah, that's tea and cats. That's what I got.
Tea and cats is awesome. What's your dog's name?
Her name is Spunky. She's my little well-dressed mama dog. She my little stray that found us, and she's literally my shadow everywhere I go. When I get really stressed out working with people or dealing with stuff, I've got my little person here to snuggle, and she's very sleepy right now. She says, "Mama, please let me sleep."
That's so sweet. I have a dog that looks a lot like your Spunky that was also a stray that kind of wandered up. And it's funny, I was in the office this week and I go in a couple of days a week and I was like, yeah, I miss my pets. Like I never miss my pets. I'm around them all the time now. So it's like I miss my pets. There's not many people around and I miss my pets when I'm not. So tea, pets, I don't know. Have you all been able to keep on a regular sleep schedule or maybe sleep in a little more because you don't have a commute? No, not at all. No regular sleep schedule.
I have finally started to regulate a little bit. My kids started school last week, and we're in our second week of virtual learning with them, but they are with me literally all the time. There's actually one right over here to my right. And I think that the biggest challenge I have is getting away from screens. I'm on screens at school. I'm on screens at home. My kids are on screens. We're looking at screens. We're not, doing. I've got to try to get off of screens some more. But yeah, I'm trying. I'm getting better with my sleep schedule. My average schedule was like 4 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon, roughly, which is horrific. But now I'm starting to get up at 7 a.m. like a normal human being. So.
Oh, and then we've also got the time zones. So, or to mention that as well. And there's a tutor in the Writing Center that actually came to Milledgeville, where Georgia College is, and then kind of found out that really nothing's happening because people can't hang out, and so and everything's online. And she had moved from Pennsylvania. She had kind of stopped off at her parents in Pennsylvania, moved down here, and then moved back to St. Louis, where she'd been living like for 3 years. So she's got she's got a time difference now, but it's also this interesting thing of well, if you don't have to be in a place or you're in another place, there's a time zone difference as well. So acknowledging that maybe in sessions and to each other, we're in different places or in different times. What's the weather like there, type thing. And my heart goes out to everybody who has kids at home and who's doing like online learning. And Brandy Blake is at Georgia Tech, and her kids are at home too. So yeah, I don't have kids, so that's not my situation. But bless you. You're doing great work. All right, so it looks like Dwayne is pulling us back to the main session. So it was nice to meet everybody, and we'll see each other in the main session. Thanks for all your thoughts.
Thank you so much.